Welcome to another Good Dads podcast. I am Jay Foch alongside Scott here. You're like an old pro at this now.
Yeah, I've been on quite a few now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Nice seeing you.
No, please. Please.
We would also like to welcome Bruce Blakemore. Now, you are an ag teacher and, of course, dad, which we'll get to, in the Walnut Grove area. You retired last year after 28 years of teaching, so I'm sure that you are itching to get back or go part-time
Actually,
any day now.
I got to volunteer and help a local school district out, work with a team this year, and it was super fun not having the responsibility of anything but just working with kids. We get into the business of education so we can work with kids, and you find out pretty quick that a lot of your time is spent doing stuff that doesn't feel like it matters. And I got to go in and work with those kids over at the neighboring school district and watch the regular classroom teacher run around like a chicken with his head cut off, take care of all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't miss that at all. Yeah. But I loved being with the kids.
Yeah. That is really awesome. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine, you got to fill your time with something now because, retirement is just too boring, right?
Oh, yeah, I guess you could say that. I kind of went through a depression because I kind of dreaded what I was going to do after I retired. But it's been great. I'm like the only person that kind of dreaded retirement, I think. But it's been a good move for me, and I'm glad I did it. I farm now, raise cattle, and been
sounds super retired then.
Yeah.
I have always raised.
You talking about easy work?
Yeah, I always raised some cattle, but this is a different level because this is quite a few more head, and I've got a nephew that helps me, and my son helps me some, and it's the family business for my wife's family. So I've been doing that full time for a year now. So,
and I would imagine being an ag teacher would help a little bit with that, right?
Well, you would think, right?
But there's still things that come up where you're
like,
know
what I'm doing.
I don't know.
I've raised cattle my entire life and all that. Literally, I come from the hayfield yesterday. Today it's a rainy day. It's a perfect day to be here because I'm not having to be out there, but.
So, okay, this is what blows my mind, too, is you don't think about, you have to be an engineer and a quick engineering mind. Like when it comes to, when it's just, yes, that, you have your main machines and tools that you do everything, but then some things just happen.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I think about the Ducks, the Branson ride the Ducks, the World War II carrier.
Mm-hmm.
In World War II, you got all of these young men, probably about 25% of them come from the farm background, but everybody come from a Depression background where they had to make things work. They were all resourceful. Yep. And the Army realized that they needed to make a carrier so they didn't have to build bridges across the Rhine River. So they said, we need you to take a deuce-and-a-half truck and make it float. And they did it in some incredible amount of time. It was 6 months or something. Just a bunch of people got it all rigged up, and there you go. You got the Ducks.
Because you had to make it work.
Yeah. What is it? The necessity is the mother of all invention, and it's true. And this is where we'll touch on today with talking about the trip that we've been going on and things, and some aspects of that trip that I love is not having access to internet and technology, because everybody changes so quick. And I grew up as a Gen Xer in that way without having technology. And when we get bored, we'd build a fort in the living room floor, or, I'm a songwriter, so I'd spend time just writing songs and poetry and stuff when I was bored. And I told somebody one time, I'm like, if I ever get a smartphone and Google on my phone, I'll never write a song again, because every time I have downtime, I'll just be looking up something. And it was true. I've recently started writing a lot more anymore, but it's such a distraction. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've done all the music for the Good Dads graduation, and we had 50 dads graduate from the New Pathways program. So
that was awesome.
We really appreciate you doing that as well.
Suits. I just loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, some of those dads never wearing suits.
Yeah.
anymore.
How important that is to him.
That
Yeah.
was so cool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many suits you wear on the farm either. But maybe just on Sundays.
It's funny because see me out there, you'll see me in my retired school clothes. So I have my Walnut Grove polos and my khakis that aren't so khaki anymore, but I might as well use them up.
Yeah, that's right.
Get them all greased up and everything. So
Yeah.
not really a suit, but
Well, let's talk a little bit about your 3 adult children. We usually like to start things off with, in the first and foremost, being a dad. Yeah.
it happens fast. My son Tanner is 28. And like I said, he's very helpful to all of us. He's around where we are with our farm, and he helps us do lots of farm stuff. He's caregiver for my mother-in-law, and he just helps us in lots and lots of ways. My daughter Brienne is a nurse, and she does that. She's a surgical recovery nurse, and she lives close, and I'm thankful for that too. And then my baby, I call her my hippie kind of. She's right now she is in Colorado and Canyon City, doing whitewater raft guide trainings. I lost my skid steer operator this summer.
You were right. She's definitely hippie. I thought you were just saying that because she was the younger child.
And I just am so jealous of her. That's like, man, I'm living vicariously through her. I want to know everything she's doing. And she's basically living in a shack and rafting the Arkansas River every day. And I think she's going to have to start taking people down the river before long. And I'm curious to see how that goes.
I've been on those whitewater rafting trips, and those river guides are very interesting. So that's a pretty good group, man. Teach you a lot.
Oh yeah. It's been pretty tough. Some of the training has been pretty tough. So it's been wet for a whole, for weeks at a time. And like she was talking about when she first got out there was, they were camping out of the raft as part of the training. And she said it was 37 degrees at night and we're wet, couldn't build a campfire. It was so dry out there. So we're standing around a propane burner trying to keep warm. It's like, well, that's good for you. That's good.
So has that made you and some of your other family go out there and do a little bit in Colorado to go visit her, or?
Well, it's funny you say that because I've been out there once, but not by choice. Her car broke down and I had to go take her.
Be an engineer.
I took her an engine and they put an engine in out there for her. And so I did get to see her in a day or two, and that was nice. But I'd really like to go back and actually hire her to take me down the river. I want to be one of her clients.
There you go.
That'd be great.
So
Have you ever done it before? Water rafting?
Oh yeah, I've done it like 6 or 8 times. I've been thrown out of the raft before. And
In Colorado?
Gorge, yeah.
Oh, in the Royal Gorge?
Yeah. And actually, that's what we're going to talk about today. I take all my students through that rafting.
Well, please, tell us a little bit about that. And I mean, do you still do that, or did you do it while you were teaching?
As a kid, growing up, we used to travel quite a bit. Whenever we weren't farming, we would go to Colorado. Was kind of our place to go. And every October, my dad would take me elk hunting. If I keep my grades up, he would take me elk hunting. And I got to skip some school. I had to do my homework before I left. And I got to skip some school and go out there and hunt. Of course, the whole thing was I probably learned more out there than I probably would have the week in school. And my teachers understood that too. But I developed a love for an area out there. I was used to hiking all over it, a bunch of mountains in that area. I knew them. We knew people out there. So when I started teaching in 1996, 97, one of the things I kind of wanted to do was I'd really like to take my students out there on a trip. So I took my first Colorado trip with my FFA chapter. I think there were 7 of us in 1999. And I based it on how we did our elk hunting trip. So when we would go on an elk hunting trip, there was about 10 of us men that would go. Well, I was a boy, but all the men. We took a big army mess tent. We would set it up and we would all stand in it. And everybody for the week we had to, each man had to bring a night meal They had to provide the meal for the entire group for one evening. So we had food kind of covered, and then breakfast would be whatever we cook breakfast as a group. So when I got these kids, and I'm like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go out here to Colorado. We're going to camp, take the school bus. We're going to go up in the mountains. It's about 40 miles of dirt road to go where I'm used to elk hunting up there. And I know all these trails we can hike and things to see and do. And I had all the kids. They were required to make a night meal, and they had to bring it. So each kid would plan out one meal. We'd have a little meeting with the parents, and they'd plan out a meal, and we would take it. And each night we were staying there, we would be gone for like 7 or 8 days, I think. Each night, the kids would make it. And then we would have sandwich stuff for lunch, and we'd have snacks for breakfast. We didn't really cook a lot of breakfast out there. But we would hike. I would take agricultural tours. I had to justify the trip to the school in some ways. I'd be like, well, we would go across Kansas, and I would find state universities that we could go tour. We'd tour Kansas State University. I'd call them and say, hey, would you give us a quick tour of your research facility in Southwest Kansas? And we'd stop at Dodge City and go do that. And then there was a pheasant farm we would go to out there. And I would just find these places, things that I had seen along the roadside on the way out as a kid. I would like stop and actually knock on doors, and you might find out we were an FFA chapter. They'd be like, oh, I was an FFA member back in 54. Come on in, And we would get to go see all these things. We went to big equipment dealerships and stuff like that. And then we would end up getting up in the mountains, and we'd be up there for about 3 nights, 3 days up in the mountains. No phone service. Of course, in 1999, no one had a phone anyway, but we would go up in the mountains, and we could get one Spanish speaking radio station is all we could get where we were camping up in there. So we didn't really even have a radio to listen to that much. And getting that far off and get those kids out of their element, it was fantastic. So, and then what we would do is that when we got all done on our way home, the last thing, the highlight of the trip would be a whitewater rafting trip on the Arkansas River.
And who knew that in the future that your daughter would be a tour guide?
It's funny you say that because, because actually one of the last trips that we were on, my daughter got to go on 2 Colorado trips with us. We took one in 20, I think, well, let's see. We took one in 21 and we took one in 24, I believe. That's right. And she was on the one in 21. And we got in the gorge. So I used to, in the old days, we would go on the upper part and we wouldn't go through the Royal Gorge, and it would just be class 3 and down. So it was kind of,
yeah, because the gorge is a high class, right?
Is it? The gorge is class 4s and 5s.
That's what.
Sunshine Falls is the first big one you come to. I got thrown out of it whenever I was a teenager. Sunshine Falls went over the falls.
And then you say class waves, class 5.
And class 5 is
a very hard waves.
Yeah.
Hard.
We just decided straight on that as I got older, I got more brazen, I guess. So I took these kids through the gorge now, and the trip she was on, there was 26 of us.
Wow.
So I had a bus load, and there was 26 of us. We'd gotten done camping in the mountains. We get in that river, and there was like 3 or 4 rafts full of us. I think there was 4 rafts of us. And I remember sitting there with one of the chaperones, and my daughter Abby is sitting at the back there. We get ready to go through that first one, Sunshine Falls, my nemesis, the one I got thrown out of as a kid. I see sunshine coming up. We get through it. Of course, it's wild and crazy. The water goes over your head, and then you get done, and your guide has everybody high paddle. So everybody sticks their paddle up like a high five.
Yeah.
And everybody's all celebrating and everything. We made it through. We didn't get thrown out.
Paddles up. That's what our guide would say.
We started going, and I turned to my chaperone out of earshot of my daughter, and I said, I have a prediction to make. I said, I think my daughter's just about to find her future career path. Just a few miles down the river, I heard my daughter turn to the guide back in the back and says, so, what do you have to do to be a whitewater rafting guide?
Yeah.
And it's funny now because she's out there being trained, and some of her trainers remember our group from those times. So they were our guides.
Yeah.
That's who she's working with, and
Awesome.
So
That is really
I know I'm
cool.
talking about Abby more. I have my other two.
No,
what comes up? I mean,
Yeah, that's such a great example of like the benefits of just engaging with not only your kids, but as a teacher, engaging with all these kids, but actually investing time into them and doing something that they're going to enjoy for the rest of their life. I mean, you introduced her to her new career. That's
Well, and I'm not sure it's a career, but it's a summer job. Well,
yeah,
sure. Probably next summer. And I know she's not going to make much money, but you know what? She'd be really sorry if she didn't do it.
right.
Because I have some regret from some of the things that I didn't do when I was younger, and I'm not, I'm promoting it because you're young and you're not tied down. You can do what you want. You can always go to college. You can always do those things later as you need to. But if you got an opportunity when you're young to do something, you better do it.
Yeah.
So how important is that to get kids, and even, I'll refer to your students in the past, in a different environment, so maybe there's different conversations that come up? I know Dr. Baker is always big on, like, if you do activities with your kids, sometimes when they're too much focused on their routine, that sometimes they kind of lock up a little bit and don't share as much. But then when you're in vulnerable environments and it's something that you've never experienced, was the conversations or questions just about life in general while you were there, was that different whether it was a dad or a teacher?
Oh yeah, we getting them out of their element puts everybody kind of on the same page. That's the great thing. That's a great thing about FFA is we have the blue jackets, and you can't tell the rich kids from the poor kids when everyone's wearing the blue jackets. And it's something that we have that's amazing. And it's kind of the same way when you get out of your element, have to put technology away because it doesn't work. Pretty much everyone's kind of the same out there. And some of the kids who aren't the greatest in school, or maybe not the most popular, they kind of bond with the group because they have to be included, because you have to work together. Whenever you take these hikes and stuff, you all have to stay together. When you have to cook dinner for the group, it might be something as simple as that kid brought a meal and nobody really knew that kid that well, but the meal was really good and that just opened it up. And I've seen kids on some of these trips, a national convention and things, they leave and they don't really know one another that well, and they come back, and it's great because you see them at the cafeteria's lunchroom table the next week sitting together going, they just made a friendship with someone they didn't realize they should be friends with.
Because they had that experience, right?
And yes, and sometimes some of these kids, we try to do our trip, always try to make it as cheap as possible. I did it for $100, and it was basically the price of the rafting trip. It was actually, these trips are so cheap because you tell everybody you're a school group, you camp for free everywhere you go. You camp at the Corps of Engineer campgrounds, it's free. State parks, it's free. You take the school bus, and camping doesn't cost very much money anyway. So basically, as a chapter with fundraising money, I would buy some fuel for the bus, which would be a few hundred, maybe $500. And then I would take money and I would go buy all the sandwich stuff and snacks, and I just buy all that ahead of time. I'd have the kids bring their own soda pop or drinks, because we took coolers of water, and that I provided that, but they were on their own for drinks. So they would bring me $100 for the rafting trip, and that's all it costs. So a lot of kids could set a goal and get $100 to go on this trip, and all meals were included basically. Now we would eat out one time on the trip. In the old days, we ate at a steakhouse called True Grit, and it's closed down now. But in the modern era, in the last 3 trips we've taken, it's In-N-Out Burger. And if you know what that is, you know what that is. So
I've never been, but I've heard all about it.
Yeah. We eat at In-N-Out, we think it's special because we don't ever get it here.
Right.
Well, right. And there's
In-N-Outs in Colorado Springs.
There is. Okay. See, I thought it was strictly very west.
Yeah. So we would tell the kids to plan to bring some money for In-N-Out Burger, and they didn't have to bring much money, and everything we did was free, and it was great.
So when you go on some of these camping trips, I know you kind of alluded to, about the making of the dinner, which I think that's great, or, just preparing a meal for everyone, just life skills as you prepare to be an adult. What are some other things that you would talk about through camping that could teach maybe future life skills as well?
Well, of course, when I'm out there, they probably get to see a different side of their teacher because I'm going to my childhood stomping grounds and I'm telling them all kinds of stories that, like, I shot an elk right over there, or, one of the kids' grandpa saw a bear right up there, and we're like, and I'm telling stories all the time about things.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would imagine just being an ag teacher in general, I always look at ag as there are so many different life lessons. It's not just about learning about the ground and the animals and farming.
My philosophy of education is you learn more outside of school time than you learn in school. So the times that you go and do things in those situations, the kids want to be there because they don't have to be there. And when you want to do something, it's a principle of education. You learn when you want to do something. And they go and do that. And the things that they learn, like my other thing that I would say is we learn more from our mistakes than we do from our successes. And kids in this society don't get a chance to make mistakes, and the internet reminds you of your mistakes over and over again because everything is recorded now. Yep. Kids need to be able to make mistakes. Adults need to be able to make mistakes. Politicians need to be able to make mistakes because that's how you learn. It's wisdom. A wise person has made a lot of mistakes. We're not going to make them again. So we go to Colorado. I have to just let them make mistakes. Like I had one boy went out there. He brought a hammock. He didn't bring a blanket. He was going to sleep in a hammock.
Oh.
And he didn't even have any long pants. He had shorts. In July in Colorado in the mountains, it gets down to the 40s at night.
Yeah.
That kid for 3 nights
cuts right through that.
Not up just like this. And he'd be up next to the fire. And like, you know what? He learned more than most of the others did that brought sleeping bags. He learned something. Yeah, you do. You learn from your mistakes.
And I would imagine going in a vulnerable environment, especially like that, something that you've never experienced before, you'll have an opportunity to make a handful of mistakes.
I've had adults just think I'm crazy for what I do. Like they think I'm just, what are you doing with all that liability, taking those kids to do that? Something could happen. So, and it's true. Something can happen. But if you sit back and you be scared about things, you're never going to do anything because it's a scary world. And we're reminded how scary it is on the internet all the time. Like this can happen or this can happen. And you have to just have faith and go out there and trust your kids.
Yep.
I find it was easier, and they would be better behaved when you got farther away from home because they're out of their element. And I didn't worry about it nearly as much as if I was having a dance at school. I'd worry about that a lot more because people bringing stuff in the back door or whatever, because you got friends that could sneak this in or whatever. You get way out there in the mountains or somewhere like that, it's pretty hard to go find alcohol or something like that. You're pretty much got to stay the group. And the best part is, you keep them scared to death all the time.
This Good Dads podcast is brought to you in part by our generous supporters. This week, we'd like to thank the following: Prime Inc., Table Rock Shores, Mr. and Mrs. Bob and Susan Biney, Springfield Sign, Basis Financial Group, Branson Public Schools. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Visit our website at gooddads.com to learn how to contribute to the Good Dads mission.
So in that first trip I took some adults with me, the original hunting party went with me as chaperones. They drove their trucks and followed the bus and helped us out. And they started lying to the kids, like, just full disclosure to any of my students, you ever see this podcast, snow snakes are not real, okay? So they would start going on to these kids, to these kids. And the greatest one, those first few years, I would call the Division of Wildlife Officer, basically their conservation agent. And I would tell him, I'm like, hey, we're going to be staying up in Stunner Campground. We're going to be bringing Missouri catfish. That was my meal. I would bring a meal because I wasn't exempt from the meal thing. I'd bring a meal for the group. I'd bring fish to fry. I'd say, hey, we're going to have a Missouri catfish. We'd love to have you come up and have dinner with us. wear a uniform. So he came 3 years, and he come up there and bring his dog. And when he got up there the very first year, the same guy 3 different times, and he got up there, and these adults I had in my group were just razzing the kids about, oh, you better stay close together. These bears will pick you off at night, and all this kind of stuff. Lets this conservation agent soul, he just chimed right in with them. and he's like, yeah, they will. He says, usually we don't lose more than 1 or 2 out of a group this size. He's in his uniform, and the kids are just listening. But he came bringing a bag habanero peppers that he bought from farmer's market down in the valley where he lived. He said, here's my contribution to dinner. And one of the guys said something like, I bet you use those peppers to keep the bears away. And he says, oh yeah, that's how we down in the valley keep the bears away, is we eat these peppers. It said it gets in our bloodstream, the habaneros do, and then when we sweat, it they can smell it and they won't come near us. So the kids are all like, oh, give me a pepper. So all my kids are choking down habanero peppers and coughing and everything. Well, went to bed. They did. They said, how many do we got to eat? And this guy's like, oh, you got to eat 1 per 100 pounds of body weight. Yeah. And he's telling like this formula that didn't exist. And so that night when I went to bed, I had tent checks, and I'd go check the tents. And I went over to the boys' tent. It wasn't the girls' tent so much, but the boys. I went over there, and I got up to the tent, and there was a habanero pepper laying right in the entryway of the tent. And I got to looking around. They laid them in a circle around the tent outside. They had them that's inside. Man, they didn't want the bears coming in there and getting them.
That is so
the
awesome.
Boys are thinking the girls are just toast that next morning.
Yeah, right.
I could tell you, though, they were so scared. They didn't want to go outside, even use the restroom or anything. Yeah. They were scared of dad. And that's the way you like to keep them.
Yeah.
Keep them in line.
That's right.
Yeah. Good. This is a great segue. You're going to give us a song about habanero peppers.
Yeah.
No, for real though. This is very interesting to me because not only you're an ag teacher and now you're working on a farm, but as we kind of mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, you do all the music for Good Dads and our new Pathways program and graduation. You did bring your guitar along, and how do you incorporate your guitar with some of what you talk about?
Well, I'm a weird songwriter because I don't write love songs. I wrote 1 love song for my wedding, and that's pretty much the only one I've ever done. It was my first public performance, and I still to this day never watched the video from 1995. I'm scared to see how bad I did it. But I write folk songs, Americana type songs, bluegrass type songs, a little bit of every genre. But I try to write them about things with lessons and events, and most of my material is based on real life situations, if not straight up true story, real people. And the song I'm going to do for you, I have never sang this to another soul. It's one of these things I started on the tractor. I found with the greasy fingerprints a couple of weeks ago. I found I had started on the tractor probably 2 years ago. And I had never finished the song, and I just decided I was going to finish it. And I got it out, and I started working it. Now, in the meantime, I've retired. Since I started the song, I've retired. Some of the things I had in there, and I read a book just recently, this winter. It was called The Anxious Generation. I can't recall the author, but it's a very popular book right now. And pretty much in that book, it talked about a lot of these things I've talked about. Like, it talked about how kids today don't have a chance to do dangerous activities because we're so scared. We Gen Xers got to run around like feral, like we did whatever we wanted because we were latchkey kids and didn't have people watching us all the time. But we, for some reason, with our kids, become protective and scared because we're not going to let them be running around like us. And not only that, they said in this book is like everybody thinks it's a much more dangerous world than it was when we grew up, but it's not. It's just we're led to believe that because we have media bombarding us all the time, telling us how scary everything is. Yeah. So this book, Anxious Generation, It talked a lot about true friendships and, you know, a lot of the things, the negative things that come with the internet and the kids never knowing a life without being hooked online. And this book was actually talking about groups of people starting to get together to let their kids be free. Now they'll bring them to a park or something and they'll let their 8-year-olds go right around the town, but they'll have somebody kind of stand back and letting them do what they want to do. Cause like we all did that on our bikes when we were kids. We ride around town, go anywhere we wanted to, you know? But now you would be scared for your 10-year-old to ride around Springfield by themselves, and not that it really would be that unsafe. It probably wouldn't be, but we're led to believe that it would be. And one of the things, I wrote a song years ago called Bloody Merry-Go-Round about the toughest teacher at school. And it had a picture of the merry-go-round in this book, and they use it as an example of playground apparatus. We used to have things like this. It could skin you up and get you dirty, and you'd learn lessons from them. And we took all them out and put all these plastic play tubes and things in that won't cut you or bruise you. So we're softening everybody up, you know.
Like, do you just come up with the words and the lyrics while you're driving? Because I'm trying to envision you on a tractor. It's not like you can grab your guitar, right?
Or, I'm a weird songwriter because I write everything in my head with a piece of paper, almost like poetry style. Mm-hmm. I can hear it, I can feel it in my head. And then of an evening when I get back in from driving or whatever, I get the guitar out and I put it together with music.
Okay.
And sometimes it evolves. When I put it with the music, with the words, I change things around a little bit. But I'll get the tune just stuck in my head. In the songwriting world, it's called a hook.
Mm.
The hook is a part of the song that you sing or hum all day long. You know, whatever it is, that's the part of the song that hooks you. And I'll get the hook stuck in my head. And I got to have to drink water real quick. But I wrote this song called Before the Online, and I have never sang it.
Oh, this is exciting.
I know.
I've never sang it to anyone, and it's kind of a difficult song to play. And I'm probably going to mess up. Just have some grace here.
Hey, if there's one thing I learned from you today, mistakes are a good thing. So just say, you know, right?
For the online, we used to go to church in another time. We listened to the words of the preacher and passed the love around, had dinner on the ground. For the online, shut it down. For the online, we listened to the radio in another time. Sang to the ones we know on the school bus. Crank the volume loud, didn't block out all the crowd. For the online, shut it down. For the online, shut it down. I'm glad I was around. Real life I got to see, not something from a screen. We laughed and we smiled, didn't filter ugly out. Better friends I had not found. For the online, shut it down. For the online, we used to play outside in another time. Took off on a ride with my best friend. Cruise our bikes around, weren't scared in this town. For the online, shut it down. For the online, shut it down. I'm glad I wasn't out. Real life I got to see, not something from a screen. We laughed and we smiled, didn't filter ugly out. Better friends I had not found. For the online, shut it down. Our greatest mistakes never had to be replayed. We learned hard lessons and moved on. Forgiveness and grace was a lot more commonplace. Intelligence was our own. For the online, I'd look you in the eye
in another time. I try to see your side of the problem. Shake hands and both sit down, find some common ground, or the online shut it down. Or the online shut down. I'm glad I was around. Real life I got to see, not something from a screen. We laughed and we smiled, didn't filter really out. Had friends I had not found, or the online shut it down.
Yeah.
Yes.
You are the very first people to ever hear this song.
That was amazing.
Fantastic.
That was that was really good. That was amazing. And it's great because before we even started this podcast, you were like, I try to incorporate a lot of things that I talk to my students and my kids about, and obviously now you have some tractor time working on the farm and everything. And that was a perfect wrap up of everything that I've kind of as just like a viewer and listener of this podcast myself. I mean, that's kind of what I've gathered as well.
Thank you. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, it was
great.
I kind of had to use the lyrics because I've
it's
changed them around quite a bit, and there's a lot more verses I could add to that song about things from that book and other things that I see. I don't want to sound old, old people get to be like set in their ways and like, oh, we had it better than this generation is terrible. I don't ever want to be somebody who looks down on kids. Gen Z is different. Okay. But they can't help it. They didn't have the same opportunities we had. They're going to have different opportunities than we have. My friend's daughter just recently said to him, she's 14 years old. She just said, Dad, I wish technology would just stop where it is right now. I'm afraid of what it's going to do as it goes forward. I wish it would just be here right now. And, I see a lot of these kids that, would say, man, they're obsessed with the 80s, oh man, I wish I could have been alive in the 80s when, you watch Stranger Things, like spot on right there. Exactly right. It's the 80s. And these kids are like, man, I wish we could have run around on our bikes like that. And it was true. We had a sense of freedom and creativity. And I hope with some of the measures we're putting in about making phones, taking them out of school, we've done it both ways at our school. We had it where we let kids have phones all the time. And I thought that was a thing to do because you didn't want to get behind and like they're a tool, using tool. Mm-hmm. But I remember on our trip, we would spend 3 days in the mountains and there would be no phones whatsoever. Nothing would work. And those kids started playing Uno and hide and seek. And they would do all these old things because they didn't have anything else to do. And then on the way out of the mountains, there's this one curve that we went around. And as we went around this curve, I remember one kid in the back saying, I got signal. And everybody on the bus pulled their phones out and it was immediately different.
Oh, wow.
And it was from the rest of the trip on. They were different. It was just like they went back into their modern day life, and that was it. And you just realize that as the bus driver up there, like these things have a lot of power.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we sure do appreciate having you on today, and that song will be on your next album.
I don't do albums.
He's a sound
I don't really have
rapper.
anybody to play them to.
Well, you play it.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for being here. Of course, former ag teacher, now just ag in general. Yes, just doing the farm life. So, Bruce Blakemore, Scott, as always, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.